The great chamber of the Galactic Council floated in the darkness of space. It was a massive station, built long before any living species could remember. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of worlds gathered here to discuss the fate of the galaxy. The walls were made of crystal that showed the stars outside. It was beautiful. It was powerful. And for Ambassador Una Park, it was the loneliest place she had ever known. She walked through the crowd of alien delegates. Some were tall and covered in scales. Others were made of living crystal that sang when they moved. There were creatures with dozens of eyes, beings that floated instead of walked, and ancient things that looked like trees given life. None of them looked at her. None of them cared. Humanity had joined the Galactic Union 300 years ago. They had come to the stars with hope in their hearts. They had brought music, art, and stories. They had offered friendship to every species they met, and in return, the galaxy had given them nothing but silence and contempt. Una found her seat at the very back of the chamber. It was small and far from the center where the important species sat. She did not complain. She never complained. That was not the human way. Not anymore. The session began with the usual matters. Trade agreements between the Mavari Swarm and the Orith Conclave. Border disputes in the outer systems. The price of starship fuel. Una waited patiently for her turn to speak. Finally, after 3 hours, the council speaker called her name. She stood and walked to the central platform. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. The delegates watched her with amusement, boredom, or disgust. She was used to all three. Honored delegates, Una began. Her voice was calm and clear. I come before you today to report a matter of grave concern. In the past year, the Kreth Dominion has attacked 17 human colony worlds. They have killed over 2 million of our people. They have taken prisoners. They have burned our cities. I have brought evidence of these crimes, and I ask the council to take action. She pressed a button on her tablet. Images appeared in the air above her. Cities on fire. Bodies in the streets. Children crying for parents who would never come. Ships with the Kreth symbol raining death from the sky. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then laughter. It started with the Kreth delegate, a massive reptilian creature named Vorin. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were yellow like poison. He laughed so hard that his whole body shook. Soon, other delegates joined him. The sound filled the chamber like thunder. Vorin stood from his seat. He was 3 meters tall, and his voice was like rocks grinding together. The human speaks of crimes, he said. What crimes? We have simply taken what is ours. Your colonies were built on worlds that belong to the Dominion. Your people are trespassers. We have every right to remove them. Those worlds were unclaimed, Una said. Her voice did not shake. We followed every law of the Union. Laws are for species that matter, Vorin replied. You are nothing. You are soft. You are weak. You have no claws, no scales, no natural weapons. You cannot even survive in the cold of space without your little suits. You are meat. Soft meat walking on borrowed time. More laughter filled the chamber. Una looked around at the other delegates. The Mavari, insect-like creatures with beautiful wings, looked away. The Orith, beings of living crystal, dimmed their inner light. The ancient Pelians, who looked like tall gray figures with too many joints, simply watched in silence. No one would help. No one ever helped. In the far corner of the chamber, Elder Tisan of the Pelion Collective observed the human ambassador with great interest. He was over 9,000 years old. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve and go extinct. And in all his long life, he had learned to recognize dangerous moments. This was a dangerous moment. The human's face had not changed. Her heart rate, which Tyson could sense through his natural abilities, had not increased. She showed no fear, no anger, no desperation. She was perfectly calm. And that, Tyson knew, was wrong. A species facing extinction should show some emotion, unless they had already made their decision. Una. Park stood alone on the platform. The laughter continued around her. Vorin was still speaking, listing all the ways humans were inferior, all the reasons why they deserved their fate. The other delegates were enjoying the show. It was rare entertainment to watch a weak species beg for help. But Yuna was not begging. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small device. It was made of black metal and had a single red button. She pressed it. Every screen in the chamber flickered. The laughter stopped. The delegates looked around in confusion as their personal devices all showed the same message. It was written in every language of the Union. And it said, "Formal notice of withdrawal." Yuna's voice cut through the silence like a blade. The United Earth Government hereby withdraws from the Galactic Union. All treaties are void. All agreements are ended. All diplomatic relations are severed. She paused and looked directly at Vorin. Effective immediately. For a moment, no one moved. Then Vorin laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. Withdrawal? You cannot survive alone. No species can. You will starve. You will collapse. You are signing your own death. Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, almost sad. Perhaps, she said. Or perhaps you have made a terrible mistake. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps were the only sound in the chamber. Every delegate watched her go, unsure of what had just happened. Elder Tissin leaned forward in his seat. His ancient mind was working fast, putting together pieces of a puzzle that had been forming for centuries. The humans had been quiet for 300 years. They had accepted every insult, every attack, every humiliation. They had built their colonies and minded their own business. They had asked for help only once. And when that help was denied, they had not begged. They had not cried. They had simply walked away. Tissan accessed the Pelion archives, searching for any species that had behaved this way before. The search took only seconds, but the results made his blood run cold. There was only one match. One species in all of galactic history that had shown such patience, such calm in the face of extinction. They had been called the Architects. They had built the hyperspace gates that connected all worlds. They had been the most powerful civilization ever known, and when they had finally gone to war, they had nearly destroyed the entire galaxy. Tissan looked at the door through which the human ambassador had disappeared. His hands were shaking. What have we done? He whispered to no one. What have we awakened? Outside the chamber, Yuna Park walked to her shuttle. She did not look back. She did not need to. The message had been sent, and now the galaxy would learn a lesson it had forgotten long ago. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had been patient. And now, their patience had run out. 3 days passed after humanity left the Galactic Union. 3 days of silence. The galaxy continued as normal. Ships flew between worlds. Trade continued. The Kreth Dominion prepared another attack on human colonies, expecting easy victories. Warlord Gorin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devourer. He was larger than Vorin, older and more scarred from countless battles. His scales were almost black, and one of his eyes was missing, replaced by a glowing red implant. He had killed thousands with his own claws. He feared nothing. How many ships do the humans have? He asked his second-in-command. 42 warships, Warlord. Most are small patrol vessels. They have no carriers, no dreadnoughts. Their largest ship is barely half the size of ours. Gorin smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. 42 ships. We have 4,000 in this sector alone. This will not be a war. It will be a hunt. His officers laughed and agreed. The humans were finished. Everyone knew it. Then every screen on every ship in the Kreth fleet turned black. For 3 seconds, there was nothing but darkness. Gorin felt the first hint of unease in his chest. Then a face appeared on the screens. It was a human male with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a uniform of dark blue with gold stars on the shoulders. Behind him was a flag with a blue planet and white stars. I'm Admiral Kongdeho of the United Earth Navy, the man said. His voice was quiet but clear. This message is being broadcast to every ship, every station, and every world in the galaxy. What I am about to say is not a request. It is not a negotiation. It is a statement of fact. Gorin tried to shut off the broadcast. Nothing worked. Every system on his ship was frozen. locked out by something in the signal itself. Admiral Kang continued. For 300 years, humanity has been a member of the Galactic Union. In that time, we have been attacked 417 times by various species. We have lost 62 colony worlds. We have buried 18 million of our people. And every time we asked for help, every time we were ignored, the Admiral's face showed no anger. That somehow made his words more frightening. We asked because we believed in peace. We believed that the galaxy could be better. We believed that if we showed kindness, we would receive kindness in return. We were wrong. Images began to appear beside the Admiral. They showed the attacks on human colonies, the death, the destruction, the cruelty. The Kreth Dominion has killed 2,341,567 human civilians in the past. They are alone. They have taken prisoners for experiments. They have used our children as targets for hunting games. And the Galactic Council did nothing. The Galactic Union did nothing. So now humanity will do something. Admiral Kang looked directly into the camera. His eyes were like steel. This is the declaration of retribution. From this moment forward, the United Earth government is in a state of total war with the Kreth Dominion. There will be no negotiation. There will be no surrender accepted. For every human life taken, we will demand justice. For every colony destroyed, we will take 10 Kreth worlds. This war will end only when the Kreth Dominion ceases to exist. Goran felt cold for the first time in his life. He shook it off. Brave words from a species with 40 ships, he growled, as if the Admiral had heard him. Kang Deho smiled slightly. Some of you are thinking that we are bluffing. You believe we have 40 ships? You believe we are weak. Allow me to correct this misunderstanding. The screens changed to show a map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared, marking the positions of the Kreth fleet. Then blue dots began to appear. They appeared everywhere, hidden in asteroid fields, emerging from the dark spaces between stars, rising from moons that had been thought dead for centuries, uncloaking from positions that should have been impossible to reach. 12,000 blue dots. 12,000 human warships. On the bridge of the Devourer, Goran's officers stood frozen in shock. One of them made a sound like he was choking. Someone whispered, "How is this possible?" Admiral Kang answered their unspoken question. 200 years ago, humanity realized that the galaxy would never accept us. We realized that one day, we would have to fight for our survival. So we began to prepare. We built shipyards in places no one would look. We developed weapons that no one thought we could create. We trained soldiers in secret. We waited. The blue dots on the map began to move. They were converging on Kreth positions from every direction. You called us soft. You called us weak. You forgot something important. The Admiral leaned forward. Soft does not mean harmless. Patient does not mean powerless. And pushed far enough, even the gentlest creature will bare its teeth. On the edge of the Kreth fleet, a small ship uncloaked. It was black and sleek, shaped like a blade. The name on its hull was Silent Fury, and its captain was a woman named Yuri Han. She was 34 years old, had dark hair cut short, and had been waiting for this moment her entire life. "This is Captain Han," she said into her communicator. "The black signal is active. Operation Awakening is a go. All units move to attack positions." Across the galaxy, human ships responded. They had been hiding for decades, some for over a century. Their crews had lived in secret, training and waiting for the call that had finally come. Now they moved as one, a force that the galaxy had never imagined could exist. Goran watched his screens fill with enemy contacts. For every Kreth ship, there were 3 human vessels. They were smaller, yes, but they moved with terrible speed and precision. And more kept appearing. "Warlord," his sensor officer said, his voice shaking. I am detecting weapons signatures we do not recognize. They're ships. Their ships are using technology that does not match any known species." "What do you mean?" "Their weapons are similar to the artifacts. The ancient ones. The ones built by the architects." Goran felt his missing eye begin to ache. a phantom pain that came only when he was truly afraid. The architects were a legend, a myth. They had supposedly existed 1,000,000 years ago, before all current species had evolved. They had built the hyperspace gates, the only technology that no one had ever been able to recreate. Then they had vanished, leaving only ruins and mysteries. If the humans had architect technology, Admiral Kong's face appeared one final time. To the other species of the galaxy we say this: stay out of our way. This war is between humanity and the Kreth. Anyone who helps them will share their fate. Anyone who stands aside will be left in peace. Choose wisely. The broadcast ended. In the silence that followed, Captain Yuri Han gave the order that began the war. All weapons free, she said. Show them what 300 years of patience looks like. The first missiles launched. The first energy beams fired. The first Kreth ships exploded. Across the galaxy, in the Galactic Council chamber, the delegates watched in horror. They had laughed at the humans. They had ignored their pleas. They had called them weak and soft. Now they understood their mistake. Elder Teeson stood before the council, his ancient body trembling. I warned you, he said, though he had not warned anyone. He had only suspected. The humans are not what we thought. They are something far older, far more dangerous. Vorin, the Kreth delegate who had laughed loudest, stood with his mouth open. All the color had drained from his scales. This cannot be, he whispered. They were nothing. They were prey. They were waiting, Teeson replied. And now they are done waiting. On the bridge of her ship, Captain Yuri Han watched the first Kreth vessels burn. She felt no joy, only a cold, hard determination. Behind her, her crew worked in perfect silence. The hunt had begun. But the Kreth had been wrong about who was the hunter and who was the prey. The war moved faster than anyone had thought possible. In the first week, humanity destroyed 600 Kreth warships. In the second week, they took back all 17 of their lost colony worlds. By the end of the first month, the Kreth had lost a quarter of their empire. The galaxy watched in shock. They had never seen war like this. Other species fought slowly. They moved armies across planets, took territory piece by piece, negotiated after each battle. Wars lasted decades, sometimes centuries. There were rules, traditions, expected behaviors. Humans ignored all of them. They struck without warning. They attacked from directions that should have been impossible. They used tactics that no one had seen before. Their ships moved like a single creature, perfectly coordinated, endlessly adaptive. When the Kreth tried to defend a position, the humans hit somewhere else. When the Kreth spread their forces thin, the humans concentrated and broke through. Lieutenant Mina Cho stood in the drop bay of the assault carrier. Brave Dawn. She was 28 years old. Small compared to most soldiers, but her eyes held a fire that made larger people step back. She led a ground assault team called the Red Tigers, and today, they were going to rescue prisoners from a Kreth labor camp on the planet Kreth 7. Listen up, she said to her soldiers. Intelligence says there are 2,000 human prisoners in that camp. Men, women, children. Some have been there for years. The Kreth used them for labor, for experiments, and she paused. For sport, her soldiers said nothing. Their faces were hard. We are going to get them out. Every single one. The Kreth garrison has 3,000 soldiers. We have 200. That means we hit fast, we hit hard, and we do not stop until our people are free. Sergeant Taewoo, her second-in-command, checked his weapon one final time. He was a tall man with kind eyes that seemed wrong on a soldier's face. In another life, he had been a poet. Now he was a warrior, though he still wrote poems in his small notebook during quiet moments. Ma'am, he said, what about Kreth civilians? The camp is near a town. Mina looked at him. We do not kill civilians. Any species? That is what separates us from them. But anyone who picks up a weapon against us dies. Clear. Clear, ma'am. The ship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Through the windows, Mina could see the planet below. It was gray and ugly, covered in factories and mining operations. The Kreth had stripped it bare long ago. The assault began at dawn. The Red Tigers hit the ground running. Mina led from the front, her weapon firing in precise bursts. Kreth soldiers fell before they could react. Human technology was better. Human training was better. Human motivation was stronger. In 30 minutes, they reached the camp gates. What they found inside would haunt them forever. The prisoners were kept in cages meant for animals. Many were sick, starving, covered in wounds. Children sat in corners with empty eyes. Adults bore scars from torture, from experiments, from things that Mina did not want to imagine. But the worst part was the hunting ground. Behind the main camp was a fenced area filled with artificial forests and rocks. Mina found the bodies there. Human bodies, dozens of them, killed for sport. Some had been given a head start before being chased down. Others had been released in groups so the Kreth could practice their aim. Tewu stood beside her, his face pale. They hunted them, he said, like animals, like entertainment. Mina activated her helmet camera. She made sure it recorded everything. The bodies, the cages. The children who flinched when she reached out to help them. Command, she said into her communicator. I am transmitting footage from Kreth 7 prison camp. I recommend immediate broadcast to all galactic channels. Lieutenant, are you sure? This content is, the galaxy needs to see what the Kreth have done. They called us weak for showing mercy. Let them see what their strength looks like. The footage went out an hour later. It played on every screen, in every species territory. It showed the truth that the Kreth had hidden, the truth that the Galactic Council had ignored. The response was immediate. On the Mavari homeworld, the Swarm Queen watched the images in silence. She had 400 children of her own. The thought of them in cages, hunted for sport, made something cold settle in her heart. For the first time, she understood why the humans were fighting so hard. The Orith Conclave, beings of living crystal who communicated through light, dimmed across their entire network. They had always believed themselves above the concerns of organic life. Now they saw that cruelty was cruelty, regardless of what form it took, and in the Pelian archives. Elder Tisson finally found what he had been searching for. The records were old, older than any living memory. They were stored in a language that only a few Pelians could still read. But Tisson was one of the oldest of his kind. He had made it his life's work to preserve ancient knowledge. The architects had not simply vanished a million years ago. They had fought a war, a terrible war against an enemy that no longer existed. They had won, but the cost had broken them. Their civilization had collapsed. Their technology had failed. Their people had scattered across the galaxy, hiding, trying to forget. Some of them had found a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. They had landed there, shed their technology, and started over. They had chosen to become something new, something gentler. They had become humans, but the old instincts were still there, buried deep. The capacity for war that had once burned half the galaxy was sleeping in human blood, waiting to be awakened. Tissan closed the records with shaking hands. He had to tell the council. They had to understand what they were dealing with. The emergency session began within the hour. What you are saying is impossible, Voron said. His voice was not as confident as before. Too many Kreth ships had died. Too many Kreth worlds had fallen. Humans are primitive. They evolved on their planet like any other species. No, Tyson replied. They were placed there. They modified themselves over thousands of generations, suppressing their technology, forgetting their history. But the core remains. When pushed to the edge, they remember what they used to be. The council chamber was silent. The architects were not conquerors, Tyson continued. They were protectors. They built the hyperspace gates to connect all species, to promote peace and trade. But when threatened, they responded with overwhelming force. They did not fight to win battles. They fought to end wars, permanently. Then we must stop them, another delegate said, before they destroy everything. Tessin shook his head. You misunderstand. The architects only destroyed threats. They did not harm those who left them in peace. The humans are the same. They offered peace for 300 years. They only went to war when given no other choice. He looked at Vorin. If you want to survive, tell your people to surrender. Accept judgment for your crimes. The humans will not exterminate you if you submit. They are not like the species that forced them to fight. Varen's scales rippled with anger and fear. The Kreth Dominion does not surrender. We have weapons you cannot imagine. If we must fall, we will take the humans with us. Thiessen felt a deep sadness settle over him. He had seen this before, in the old records. Species that refused to yield, that chose destruction over peace. They had all been erased from history. On the planet Kreth 7, Mina Cho helped the last prisoner onto the evacuation shuttle. The child was a girl, maybe 7 years old. She had not spoken a word since they found her. Mina knelt down to meet her eyes. "You are safe now," she said. "No one will hurt you again. I promise." The girl looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took Mina's hand. Taewoo watched from nearby. He had already started his next poem in his head. It was about hands reaching through darkness, about promises kept when the universe had forgotten kindness. The shuttle lifted off, carrying the survivors to human ships waiting in orbit. Behind them, the Kreth camp burned. The reckoning had only begun. 4 months into the war, the Kreth Dominion was dying. They had lost 60% of their territory. Their allies had abandoned them one by one, unwilling to face humanity's wrath. Their fleets were scattered, their armies broken, their people living in fear for the first time in their history. Admiral Kong Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, looking at the planet below, Kreth Prime, the heart of the Dominion, the world where the Kreth species had first evolved. It was covered in cities and military bases, home to 8 billion souls. His fleet surrounded it completely. 3,000 human warships, enough firepower to turn the planet into ash in minutes. All he had to do was give the order. He did not give the order. "Open a channel to the planetary government," he said. His communications officer hesitated. "Sir, they have refused all contact for 3 weeks. Try again." The channel opened. After a long moment, Warlord Gorin appeared on the screen. He looked different from the confident warrior who had laughed at humanity months ago. His scales were dull. His remaining eye was bloodshot. He had the look of a creature that had not slept in days. "Have you come to gloat, human?" Gorin asked. "I have come to offer terms," Kong Dae-ho replied. "Unconditional surrender. Your military leaders will face tribunals for war crimes. Your fleet will be dismantled. Your people will pay reparations to the families of those you killed. In return, the Kreth species will be allowed to live. Your civilians will not be harmed. Your culture will not be destroyed." Gorin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You expect us to submit? To become slaves? Not slaves. Prisoners, for those who committed crimes. For the rest of your people, they will be free to live in peace. We do not wish to destroy you. We only wish to ensure you can never do what you did again." For a moment, something flickered in Gorin's eye. It might have been hope. Then it died. "You do not understand," he said. "I cannot surrender even if I wanted to. The War Council has made its decision. If the Dominion falls, we will take your homeworld with us." Kong Dae-ho's expression did not change, but his voice grew cold. "Explain. We have a weapon. A stellar destabilizer. It is aimed at your sun. If I give the command, your star will collapse. Earth and every planet in your system will be destroyed. 8 billion of your people will die." The bridge of the Unity fell silent. Officers looked at each other with fear. He would kill billions of innocents for revenge. Kong Dae-ho asked. "You have killed millions of my people," Gorin replied. "This is war. You wanted war. Now you have it." The screen went dark. For a long moment, Kong Dae-ho said nothing. His officers waited, barely breathing. Then he turned to his tactical officer. "Find that weapon." The search took 6 hours. Human intelligence networks, spy satellites, intercepted communications, all combined to locate the destabilizer. It was hidden in an asteroid field on the far side of the Kreth system. Protected by the remains of the Kreth fleet, there was a problem. The weapon was already charged. In 12 hours, it would fire automatically unless stopped. The human fleet could not reach it in time while fighting through the defenders. "We need a faster option," Kang Dae-ho said during the emergency meeting. Captain Yuri Han stepped forward. She had been quiet throughout the war, doing her job, leading her crew, asking for nothing. Now she spoke. "The Silent Fury can make it." Everyone looked at her. "My ship is the fastest in the fleet," she continued. "We can slip through the asteroid field while the main fleet keeps the Kreth busy. We find the weapon, we destroy it. The defenses around that asteroid field will tear your ship apart," another captain said. "It is a suicide mission." Yuri smiled slightly. "Maybe, but if we do not stop that weapon, Earth dies. My crew and I have discussed it. We volunteer." Kang Dae-ho looked at her for a long moment. He saw a young woman who had grown up on stories of humanity's struggles, who had trained her whole life for this moment, who was willing to give everything for people she would never meet. "Go," he said. "And may you fly true, Captain." The Silent Fury launched 20 minutes later. It was a beautiful ship, built for speed and stealth, crewed by 37 people who knew they might not come back. The battle for the asteroid field was chaos. Kreth ships fought with the desperation of creatures who had nothing left to lose. Human ships answered with cold precision. Explosions lit up the darkness like new stars being born. Through it all, the Silent Fury flew. Yuri pushed her ship harder than it had ever been pushed. She dodged between asteroids, slipped past Kreth patrols, and made calculations that should have been impossible. Her crew worked in perfect harmony. Each person knowing exactly what to do, they found the destabilizer in the heart of the field. It was huge, a machine the size of a city, humming with terrible energy. Kreth defenders surrounded it, ready to die to protect it. "All weapons, target the core," Yuri ordered. "Everything we have." The Silent Fury opened fire. Missiles streaked toward the destabilizer. Energy beams cut through space. The Kreth defenders fired back, and the Silent Fury shook with impacts. "Hull breach on Deck 3, her first officer reported. "Engines at 60%. Keep firing." More missiles. More beams. The destabilizer began to crack, its energy fields destabilizing. "It is going to blow," her engineer shouted. "We need to get out of here." Yuri looked at her screens. Her engines were failing. There was no way to escape the blast radius. "Ramming speed," she said quietly. Her crew did not hesitate. They pushed the Silent Fury forward, driving it straight into the heart of the destabilizer. The impact, combined with the weapon's fire, created a chain reaction. The explosion lit up half the star system. On the bridge of the Unity, Kang Dae-ho watched the light fade. His hands gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. "The destabilizer is destroyed," his sensor officer reported. His voice was unsteady. "The Silent Fury. There is no signal from the Silent Fury." Kang Dae-ho closed his eyes. 37 people. 37 lives given to protect 8 billion. "Note their names in the record," he said. "Every single one. They are heroes." In the debris field where the destabilizer had been, something moved. A small escape pod, badly damaged, drifting through the wreckage. Inside, Captain Yuri Han floated in the darkness. Her body broken, her ship gone, her crew scattered to the void. She had ejected at the last second. On instinct, though she had not expected to survive. Now she floated alone, waiting for death. A light appeared outside her window. Then another. She forced her eyes to focus. Ships. Not human ships. Their design was ancient, graceful, unlike anything she had seen before. Pelion ships. A voice came through her emergency communicator. It was old, dry, and somehow familiar. "Captain Han. This is Elder Tisson of the Pelion Collective. We have come to bring you home, Elder." "Why are you here?" "Because 1,000,000 years ago, we watched your ancestors nearly destroy everything. We were afraid of them. We hid when they needed us. We will not make that mistake again." The Pelion ship drew closer. gentle beams beginning to pull the escape pod aboard. The Pelion Collective, the Mavari Swarm, and the Orth Conclave have declared support for humanity, Tisson continued. The Kreth are alone now. It is over. Yuri felt tears on her face, floating in the zero gravity. My crew, ... 17 survived. We are collecting them now. You will see them again, Captain. You will see Earth again. I promise you this. On Kreth Prime, Warlord Gorin received the news that his weapon had failed. He sat in his command center, surrounded by officers who no longer met his eyes, and realized that he had nothing left. The war was over. The Kreth had lost. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a broken captain wept with relief as alien hands carried her to safety. Crinch Prime fell on a quiet morning. There was no final battle, no last stand, no glorious death. Warlord Gorin surrendered himself to human forces at dawn, walking out of his command center with his hands raised. He did not speak. He did not resist. He simply accepted that his time was over. The Kreth military followed their warlord's example. Ships powered down their weapons. Soldiers laid down their arms. An empire that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years ended not with a bang, but with a whisper of defeat. Human soldiers walked through the streets of the Kreth capital, past buildings that had been built on the bones of conquered species. The Kreth civilians watched them with fear, expecting revenge. Expecting the cruelty they had shown to others for so long. It never came. Instead, the humans established order. They set up medical stations for the wounded. They distributed food to areas where supply lines had been cut. They posted guards not to oppress, but to protect. The message was clear. The war was over, and it was time to heal. Colonel Mina Cho walked through a refugee center that had been set up in a former military academy. She had been promoted twice during the war, once for the prison camp rescue and once for leading ground forces in the final campaign. She was not comfortable with the attention, but she wore her new rank with quiet pride. Sergeant Taewoo walked beside her, his notebook tucked into his pocket as always. What do you think will happen to them? He asked, looking at the Kreth families huddled in the academy halls. The civilians? They will rebuild, Mina said. With our help, if they accept it. Without it, if they do not, do you think they will accept? Mina watched a Kreth child peek out from behind its mother, curious about the strange smooth-skinned creatures walking past. She smiled at it, and the child ducked back, frightened. Fear takes time to fade, she said. But yes, I think they will learn that we are not their enemies anymore. The War Crimes Tribunal began 3 weeks later. It was held in the Galactic Council chamber, now transformed into a court of justice. Delegates from every species watched as the architects of the Kreth atrocities were brought before judgment. Warlord Gorin stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by guards. He had refused legal representation, choosing to face his accusers alone. Ambassador Yuna Park rose to deliver the prosecution's opening statement. She looked the same as she had on the day she withdrew humanity from the Union, calm and composed. Only her eyes showed the weight of what had happened since. We are gathered here today to pursue justice, she began. Not revenge. Justice. She looked at Gorin. This man and those who served him committed crimes against humanity. They killed our people. They tortured our people. They hunted our children for sport. These are facts that cannot be denied. The chamber was silent. But we did not fight this war to become like our enemies. We did not sacrifice our sons and daughters so that we could stand here and demand blood for blood. We fought because we had no other choice. We fought because no one would help us. We fought because the alternative was extinction. Yuna paused. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost sad. We did not want this war. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, not enemies. We brought music and art and stories. We offered our hands in friendship to every species we met. And when those hands were slapped away, when our people were killed and our colonies burned, we still hoped for peace. She turned to face the assembled delegates. You taught us that the galaxy only respects strength, so we showed you our strength. Now let us show you something greater. We call for justice for the criminals. Fair trials, proper evidence, appropriate sentences. Those who gave orders to kill civilians will face punishment. Those who carried out atrocities will answer for their actions. But those who simply followed orders, who were soldiers doing their duty, will be given the chance to become something better. She looked at Gorin one final time. And the Kreth people themselves, the civilians who had no part in these decisions, will not be punished for the crimes of their leaders. They will be given the chance to rebuild, to grow, to become part of a new galactic order. Because that is what humanity offers. Not destruction, healing, not revenge, forgiveness. The trial lasted 3 months. Gorin and 17 other military leaders were convicted of war crimes. They were sentenced to life in prison on a neutral world, where they would be treated humanely but never allowed to harm anyone again. The rest of the Kreth military was disbanded. Human advisors worked with Kreth officials to establish a new government, one that would be overseen by a coalition of species until the Kreth proved they could be trusted again. On Earth, the war was celebrated, but not with joy. Monuments were built for the fallen. Stories were told of heroes like Captain Yuri Han and her crew. People gathered in parks and homes to remember those who would never come back. Admiral Kong Daeho retired the day after the treaty was signed. He had led humanity through its greatest trial, had made decisions that cost thousands of lives and saved billions more. He was tired in a way that sleep could not fix. He moved to a small house by the sea in Busan, the city where he had been born. He spent his days fishing, reading, and watching the waves. 3 months after his retirement, he received a visitor. Colonel Mina Cho stood at his door, looking uncomfortable in civilian clothes. She had come a long way from the lieutenant who had led the Red Tigers into battle. "Come in," Kung said. "I will make tea." They sat on his porch, looking at the ocean. For a while, neither spoke. "I came to ask you something," Mina finally said. "Something that has been bothering me." "Ask." "Do you regret any of it?" "The war, the deaths." "Everything we did." Kong was silent for a long moment. He watched a fishing boat pass in the distance, its nets spread wide. "Every death," he said at last. "Every single one. I remember their names. I see their faces when I close my eyes. The enemy soldiers, the Kreth, who were just following orders, even Gorin himself. I regret that any of it had to happen." He turned to look at Mina. "But would I do it again?" "Yes," Mina said quietly. She understood, as Kong agreed. Not for revenge, not for glory. For the children who will never have to fear the stars again. For the colonies that will grow in peace. For the future we have given to those who come after us. He smiled, and for a moment he looked younger. "We did not fight to become conquerors, Mina. We fought to become protectors. And now we must prove that we deserve that role." 1 year after the war ended, a new galactic council convened. The chamber had been rebuilt, larger and more inclusive than before. Every species had equal seating now, equal voice, equal respect. Humanity was offered a permanent seat on the High Council, not out of fear, but out of recognition. They had proven themselves not just as warriors, but as builders, healers. And Leader's Ambassador Unipark accepted the seat on behalf of Earth. Beside her stood Elder Tisan, who had become humanity's strongest ally. Behind them were Captain Yuri Han, walking on legs that had been rebuilt with Pilion medical technology, and Colonel Mina Cho, who had been appointed as the head of the new galactic peacekeeping force. "Today begins a new era," Eunice said to the assembled delegates. "An era where no species stands alone, where the strong protect the weak, where justice is more important than power, and mercy is more valuable than revenge." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of creatures from 100 different worlds. "We came to the stars hoping to find friends. For 300 years, we searched in vain. Now, at last, we have found them. Let us build something together that will last forever." The delegates rose in applause. Even the Kreth representative, a young female named Kira, who had opposed the war from the beginning, stood and clapped in the back of the chamber. Sergeant Tewu watched the ceremony with tears in his eyes. Later, he would write his final poem about the war. It would become famous across the galaxy, taught in schools of every species. Translated into every language, the last lines read, "They called us soft. They called us weak. They forgot that the softest hearts often belong to the strongest souls. We did not come to the stars to conquer. We came to find home. And in the end, home found us." The ceremony ended as the lights of the chamber dimmed, and the stars became visible through the crystal walls. Thousands of stars, thousands of worlds, thousands of species now united in a way that at once seemed impossible. Humanity had found its place among them at last, and the galaxy was better for it.